Rob Jardin and I'm a navigator and recovery coach at Fishing Partnership Support Services. Welcome to the Fishing Partnership Narcan Education and Training session. Our goals are to help fishing workers understand how we approach the opioid epidemic and what services we offer. We also want to reduce the stigma that often goes along with substance use disorder and help you feel comfortable hearing and talking about opioids and Narcan. We know that fishermen are reluctant to talk about opioids because we did a study with UMass Lowell and the results were clear. Fishermen feel like they're isolated and misunderstood. One reason why they don't want to talk about opioids is because they're worried captains will find out and not hire them. Of course, fishermen don't want to be thought of having alcohol and drug problems. Just like everyone outside of the fishing industry, most fishermen have never and will never suffer from substance use disorder. But we also know that fishermen are 5 times more likely to die of an opioid overdose than the average Massachusetts worker. We owe it to our friends, co-workers, families, and communities to learn what we can do to help them. Like all of the Fishing Partnership services, we began this program because the fishing community asked for it. A fisherman whose stepson died of an opioid overdose in his arms asked us to find a way to address opioid use disorder. Life is tougher for fishermen. We know that fishermen's incomes go up and down from month to month and even year to year. Because of this, half the fishermen are eligible for different health plans every year. This makes it very hard for fishermen to stay insured. And you need health insurance so you can afford to go to the doctor and treat injuries before they get too bad, and afford treatment programs if you need them. Also, to earn a living, fishermen depend on a lot of things outside of their control, like the price of bait, fuel, and foreign imports. This is really stressful, and fishermen spend days, even weeks at sea, which can lead them to feeling alone and less connected to their community and sometimes family. Sadly, fishermen suffer from depression at higher rates than other people. It's important to know that fishermen are not alone. Last year, there were more deaths in the U.S. due to opioid overdoses than car crashes. In one of the first studies of opioid deaths among workers in Massachusetts, Department of Public Health found that certain groups workers face a much higher risk of dying from an opioid overdose. These workers share certain risk factors: high rates of work-related injuries and illness, lower availability of paid sick leave, and lower job security. Fishermen have all these risk factors. Other high-risk workers include construction workers, farmers, loggers, garbage men, roofers, and for women, health workers and food service workers. Around the country, these industries have over 20 million workers. As you might expect, fishermen have a higher rate of back pain, neck pain, and arthritis. But like other independent workers, fishermen don't get vacation days or sick days. If you don't work, you don't earn a living. And if they don't show up for work, they may not ever get a job with that captain again. There is no job security. Of course, they prescribe pain medications so they can work through these injuries. Your back is killing you and you go to the doctor, your doctor prescribes you opioids, and you take them. It still hurts, so you take an extra one. By the end of a long trip, you might be dependent on them. This is pretty common. According to the CDC, around 25% of people prescribed opioid painkillers misuse them, and around 10% develop an opioid use disorder. Also, pills are expensive on the street, and heroin is cheap and widespread. It's not surprising that 75% of new heroin users started with prescription pain meds. Opioid use disorder and overdose are common, and we need to protect ourselves and our friends and our families. We need to learn to talk about this epidemic without shame. Research shows that addiction is a disease that can be treated, and that most people eventually recover. Nearly 10% of American adults have recovered from substance use disorder. That's over 22 million people. Many of us just never talk about it, and we know that the most effective treatment for substance use disorder is a combination of medicine, mental health services, and recovery support. Fishing Partnership Navigators are highly trained to help you and your families find and connect with all of these services. At Fishing Partnership, we approach this from multiple angles, including educating the fishing community, making ergonomics a course part of our first aid and CPR certification course, which helps us lower the risk of getting injured and needing opioid painkillers. Offering Narcan training so vessels can carry Narcan in their first aid kits and the crew know how to use it. Helping fishermen and their families access health insurance, which is required for many treatments. Providing recovery coaches like myself and my colleague Deb, who will speak next, to help guide fishermen in their recovery. And hosting our peer-to-peer support group, Oceans of Recovery, every week, to give fishermen support from people who really understand them. We can do something. You can help people with opioid use disorder by learning how to reverse an overdose. Every fisherman needs to know how to use Narcan, and every boat's first aid kit should have Narcan. Too many fishermen are dying, and rehab is much more successful when the fisherman is alive. Plus, we owe it to each other and other mariners. Fishermen are often the first responders at sea. If you don't need the Narcan, another mariner near you might. Over the past few years, opioid deaths have decreased, something that is linked to more community members learning about and carrying Narcan. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Deb. She'll talk about what an overdose is and how you can use Narcan to help someone who is overdosing.